Let's talk about the most common thing that men like to do, right? We like to get angry. Welcome to 45 on the Hour podcast. I'm your host, Colt 45, and I'm here with the Darce of all nights.
Oh.
He's going to tap me out in about an hour and a half.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to putting a beat down on Colt today. He's been lacking in the attendance department.
Just be careful with my neck, bro. I just destroyed it like a week ago, dude.
What's going on, sir? How's everything today?
It's good, man. We're just chilling, dude. Just getting in here, getting after it. I'm pretty excited about this podcast today, bro, because we got a savage veteran buddy of mine that's here, former Army gentleman, and I'm going to let him tell us a little bit more about himself. He's got a Purple Heart. He's been to combat. He knows how healing works through emotions, and I want to get more into this with him. It's my good buddy, Adam Flash. Welcome to the podcast, brother.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thanks, brother. Yeah, me and this guy, we were going back and forth. We were talking at the gym, and then we just kind of connected, and we were sitting there for probably about a good hour or something, right? Just bullshitting, you know?
Yeah.
I walked up to him, and I saw his truck, and I was like, dang. I was like, you got a Purple Heart? I was like, where'd you serve? And then we started talking like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then we found out we had a lot in common, and I follow him, and he follows me, and he talks about emotions a little bit and kind of life in detail. And we're like, man, we should do this. We should talk a little bit more on the context of, you know, military life and transitioning and getting out and all this other stuff. Because the reason why I started this, because my healing journey was talking about emotions, which is something that, I mean, I'm pretty sure you'd agree most men don't do. Especially tough guys. They don't talk about it. We all bottle it up inside and we just die with our pain, you know? And I think that's bullshit, you know?
Yeah, and, you know, I think for me, I've had a lot of stuff happen in the last 18 months or so. And we'll dive into that. But you see a lot of things on social media about motivation and growth and discipline. And what you don't see a lot about, though, is communication of the emotionality from the male perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And giving credence to that's okay. And it's not a reduction of your masculinity to lean into a village for support and have the awareness, you know, compartmentalizing everything and, you know, sequestering it and choosing to ignore it so that you can be in the pursuit of what you feel is manly. I'd almost argue that makes you less manly.
Right.
And so
I would agree too.
Yeah, so much of my growth pipeline over the last, I'd say really in the last 9 months or so, has been a tremendous amount of reading and understanding the awareness. I'd like to get to a point, you know, writing a book. I post a lot of content on my own social media feeds and, you know, trying to bring that and materialize it into something that can, you know, reach a lot of men and, you know, provide them with that type of understanding.
Yeah, and the thing that we had in common, and I want to get into your history a little bit because I think it's important people to know kind of where you came from to like how you got to where you're at now. But for me, we had the thing that we talked about that we had in common, I think, is we were talking about how when you go into the military, they give you the keys to turn off your emotions, but they never give you the keys to turn them back on.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, come here, let me brainwash the shit out of you because we're trying to protect you, and we want you to forget about anything emotional because there's no such thing as it because then we can't move forward in combat and whatnot. And then when you get out, it's like, oh, hey, you're gone. Okay, see you later. But then there's no you know, help getting back on your feet when you get out to give you that back. And I think that's emotion. I think that emotions play a big part in civilian life and in just living life, just in general, you know. And we had talked a little bit about that, and then we kind of went off into other things. But tell me a little bit about yourself, bro. Like, you know, your history, where you grew up, and then lead into the Army and just kind of.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious about.
So, you know, Southern California boy, grew up in the Valley.
Let's go.
Nice.
Yeah. Good childhood, for all intents and purposes. You know, I had, you know, my own demons that I battled with, addiction, didn't do good in school.
Addiction, like what? Alcohol and shit like that?
Yeah. I think probably around the time I was 12 or 13.
12, 13?
It's pretty young. It's pretty young, yeah.
Yeah,
man.
so, I mean,
Yeah.
I when I was growing up, I was, you know, made fun of in school. I was always like the husky kid. Unintentionally, I think that there was, you know, pressure and that came from both my parents, and so I think that created a lot of internal turmoil for me.
Okay.
And rather, I mean, back then you didn't have the understanding that we do now, and certainly not as a child. So I defaulted to any sort of external distractions.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was a kid, that was always food. And then when I got to, I don't know, must have been 7th or 8th grade, a lot of different external distractions started to come into play.
Bad vices.
Bad vices. But they felt good.
Yeah.
You know,
They do,
felt
right?
good, and they were effective in silencing all that noise.
Right.
And I've always been somebody who has defaulted to overthinking. You know, I turn myself into the prisoner in my own dungeon.
You're your own worst enemy.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I didn't graduate high school, and
Really?
yeah, no.
How'd you get in the Army?
So,
Sorry, I'm just speeding things up.
No,
I'm
no,
like,
it's
I'm
okay.
killing
It's
it.
okay. I mean,
I almost
honestly,
didn't either.
You know, the consolidated version of how I got to, you know, the military is fine. I was just kind of spinning my wheels when I got out of high school, playing football at a local community college, and then I was working at a marijuana dispensary for a little bit, which was great because, you know, I think I was getting paid like $13 or $14 an hour cash, and you know, back then for a kid who didn't have any overhead, I mean, working 40 or 50 hours a week.
Yeah, I got a little
good
bit
money,
of change
man.
in your pocket.
Yeah.
Get your employee discount. Turn around.
But I decided to join the military, and at the time that I had joined, the Department of Defense was, I mean, the operational tempo was so high, we just needed bodies, and so they had reduced the enlistment standards.
When did you go in?
Essentially.
When did you go?
08.
Oh, wait. Okay.
Yeah.
So 3 years after
Yeah,
I got
so I
out.
enlisted
Yeah,
in 08, and then, you know, so tattoo standards were down, education standards.
Did you already have all the knucks tatted?
For
and
the
everything?
no, well, for the most part, I did. I got my hands tattooed when I was probably 18, but then I wound up lasering them over the next 10 years, so they were pretty much gone. I didn't have them re-tattooed until, you know, within this last year and a half or so. So, didn't have a diploma. It's actually kind of a funny story. So the Army at the time had this GED program. So you would enlist, and then you'd go to Fort Jackson in South Carolina, and you would do, I think it was maybe 6 weeks of like this mini academic course, and then you take the GED at the end of it. And if you got the GED, then you can go and proceed to basic training.
Okay, so like a pre-boot camp almost.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of. I guess just to make sure that you're not a dumbass. I don't know, but you know, in my eyes, it's like I passed the ASVAB, you know, and I did really well. So I don't know what else you guys want from me. You know, the GED paper.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know why I did this, but I actually wound up taking the GED and passing before I entered this program. It was after I enlisted, but before I shipped out.
Okay.
I don't know. I can't recall why I did it. But I remember getting to Fort Jackson and just being stressed out the whole time because I go, you know, I'm sitting here and I'm wasting their money. I'm wasting their time. I already have my GED. What are they gonna do? Am I gonna get in trouble? And so I sat there and I rode this program out like to the end, to the very last day. And I went and spoke with one of the cadre, and I'm like, listen, I got to talk to you here. I already have my GED. And he's like, you know, what do you mean? What are you talking about? And so I explained to him the whole story. And he's like, why didn't you tell us in the beginning? We could have got you over to Fort Benning. You just sat here for 6 weeks and for nothing. So that's what they did. They out-processed me, and they sent me to Fort Benning so I could start basic training. Why did I join the military? You know, I wish that I could tell you that it was out of some sort of sense of patriotism, some sort of duty to country. But it wasn't. It was actually born from a place of pride and ego. My brother was in jail around that time, and he got out. And I think we were sitting at dinner one night, and he said that he was going to join the military. He's talking about all this badass shit that he's going to do, you know, Ranger contract, special forces. And like I had these alarm bells going off in my head, like, fuck, I'm the older brother. I'm the one that's got to pave the way. You know, I've got to have a career first.
What was your year separation between you and your brother?
Oh, it's not far. He's a couple years younger than me.
A couple years. Okay, great.
So, and he's killing it right now. He's you know, I think he's trying to embark on some of the same stuff that I am, but I think more from like a men's lifestyle perspective. And so, yeah, so I think the next day I went down to the recruiter. The same one he saw was over on Tampa in Northridge.
How old were you?
Yeah, I must have just turned 19.
Around the same age I was. I was
Yeah.
like 18, like when I first went in.
So met with this guy, Staff Sergeant Hunter Sabin, Ranger qualified. really cool, real slick dude, real suave. And went and took the ASVAB. I did really good. For those who don't know, the ASVAB is like the military entrance aptitude test. And the better that you do on it, the more, I don't know how it works for the Marine Corps, but the better you do on it, the more jobs.
It's the same
unlocks.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For
it's
the
same
Army.
thing.
And so, I mean, there's, I don't know, there's got to be over 120, 140 jobs or something that are available to you. And I remember, taking those results, and I went and sat with my grandfather. He's since passed, but he's telling me like, oh yeah, you should do this, this, and this. And I was like, no, fuck that. I can't do that. If I'm going to go do this, then I'm definitely going to have to come out with some stories. I can't go tell people that I went and served and, rode behind a desk for the whole time. We're at fucking war right now. So I went the infantry route.
11 Bravo, right?
11 Bravo. I think I got a measly $1,500 signing bonus.
11 Bravo, that's infantry, right?
That's infantry. So you've got 11 Bravo, you have 11 Charlie, which is still infantrymen, but that's the mortarman.
Yeah, because ours is 03. Anything 03 is Marine Corps.
Yeah.
Or is it infantry?
Infantry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Marine Corps infantry.
So I did that. I think I also signed an airborne contract. So, after Fort Jackson, went to Benning, did the 16 or whatever weeks it was of basic training. I think I was in some sort of holding pattern for about a week on post, and then went over to airborne school.
Let's go.
Yeah, which
Right
was
on.
about 3 weeks long. And I think
Get pushed out a couple C-130s.
Yeah. I remember, I think the last week doing the first jump, I was sitting in the plane, and I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck am I doing? This plane works just fine. I don't got to be jumping out of it. But you make that first jump, and you're like, okay, this is why people do it. Caught orders, I think that last week at jump school to Fort Bragg. I don't know how it works in the Marine Corps, but they gave us a little bit of time off between transitioning from basic training to your duty station.
Get a couple days here and there,
Yeah, so I think it took about 10 days, and then showed up at Bragg, and they gave me two options. They said, "Oh, you can go to 1st Brigade or you can go to 3rd Brigade." At that time, I didn't know what the hell the difference was. So I was, well, what's the difference? Well, 3rd Brigade is they're here and they are not deployed, and 1st Brigade's in Iraq right now. And my thought process was, well, I'm going to get there at some point, so might as well just knock it out now. So I
Right.
chose 1st Brigade, and the whole unit.
Because they were going overseas right away.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I just felt, to me, it felt inevitable.
Which part of Iraq? Baghdad? Or?
Like the Al Anbar province.
That's
Okay.
where I was.
Same,
Yeah,
same.
by the Tigris River.
Yeah,
area.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
I was in friggin' Ramadi.
Yeah, we stayed at Al Assad.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think the unit probably was maybe 3 weeks ahead of me.
What year is this then? 2009, 2008?
Yeah, so this is 2009.
Okay, we would have been in Iraq at the same time.
It's possible.
Uh-huh.
Cross paths for sure. So I catch up.
Calesto too would have been with us.
Oh, nice.
Uh-huh.
He was on his second tour because he was with mine on my first tour when I went in. Yeah,
Crazy.
because I was 2004, 2005. That's when I was in Iraq.
Al Assad was kind of nice, actually. It was like a nice big base.
Yeah, well, it wasn't bad. I think the only bitching that anybody did was when the generators went out.
Okay.
And the lights go out and the cans turn up to like 120 degrees, and you're sitting there coming back off of patrol, and you're just sweating.
Oh, yeah.
Just
Oh, yeah.
miserable.
Miserable.
bro.
Can't get comfortable.
Miserable.
Just-
So
humidity.
in this first deployment, how old are you?
Maybe 20.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
20. Still a young kid.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, so I catch up with the unit flying to Kuwait. I remember I got into Kuwait maybe.
Civilian plane or?
No, just
C-130?
I don't know because I know that we flew over there in a
Probably took
commercially
like Delta or some
yeah,
shit.
it's a commercially contracted plane.
Yeah, right.
I think we flew into Kuwait on that plane, and it wasn't until I left Kuwait and flew into Balad where we got on a military transport, either C-130 or something like that. But we got into Kuwait late in the middle of the night, and they put us in one of those, SWA huts, and I woke up maybe 6 in the morning. I remember going outside, and it was the fucking brightest sunlight I'd ever seen in my life. It's like, okay, I'm in the fucking desert. This is crazy. I've never seen sunlight this bright. Spent a few days there, then flew into Balad. And this is all first for me. I mean, I'm 20 years old.
Yeah,
I grew up in a fucking bubble, didn't grow up super wealthy, didn't grow up super poor. But
Your needs were taken care of.
Yeah, exactly. And
Right.
but it was still a bubble. I had no exposure to it.
And you're still in the valley at that time? You
Yeah.
still live in the valley?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, by the time I was 12 or 13, we'd moved out to Chatsworth, and that's where
Let me ask you, what were your hobbies back then?
football.
You said you were kind of husky?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of shed that by the time I got to high school, but football, I've been playing
Just
guitar.
like slightly overweight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think I've probably looked the same since I was about 13 or 14. I think I kind of hit this plateau and
Yeah, and they,
kind of been
Yeah.
the same size.
yeah. I was 15 when I hit that. All of a sudden, I lost some weight, and I was like, dang, I got a little tall.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, football was an outlet for me. I've been playing guitar for maybe 24, 23 years. something
Yeah, I
like
see that. I
So
see that on your channel.
Yeah,
So-
that's all. I mean, we'll get into that in a little bit, but that has always been the primary therapeutic relief.
Really?
Yeah,
I gotta get into it.
art,
I was learning for a little
drawing, painting.
Cool.
I was actually like the resident platoon tattoo artist for a while, and so
Tattoo artist.
Yeah.
Wait. Oh, you guys got the ones online, right? Where you just ordered
Oh,
a
yeah,
kid
yeah,
or whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, you tattoo mom on each other. The barricade.
Just giving out
That's what we do.
free tats, and that's what I thought that I was going to do when I got out.
Yeah, I could see you as a tattoo artist.
Yeah. I think I fit the mold for sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, we fly into Balad and meet up with the rest of the unit, and it's kind of game on from there. Spent the whole time at Fort Bragg, the same unit, and then got out. Probably I think I had a lot of leave saved up, so I think I got out a couple months before my discharge date, which
Your
was
terminal leave or whatever. Yeah.
August
Okay.
3rd. Love that HR department for the Army sucks. So you get all that fucking leave just stacking. They never took any of it off. So I think I probably had like 50 or 55 days of terminal leave, which was nice.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Freaking.
Had a beard
2
when
months,
you came
bro.
back.
2 months.
So, guys, if you guys don't know, terminal leave is where you're getting out indefinitely, but then you have all this accrued time, like vacation time, basically built up.
Days
And then-
off. That
right,
never-
but he basically got out, and then they just paid him to be out after he was. So it gives you time to build your life up, or not really build your life up, but just gives you time to transition.
Yeah, it does give you a little bit of mobility.
And I
not
think
every-
I wish the military would do that. I wish they would automatically offer 3 months, at least 3 months after you get out. Here you go. Here we're still gonna pay you.
Yeah, they should.
Because the first month and a half, you're just trying to figure it out. Like I had no money. I
You had it. You kind of didn't
I had
have
it a little
plan.
rough, bro.
Yeah,
But I was a hardhead. So when I got out, I was like, oh, I know what I'm doing. And I remember them telling me like, hey, do you know where you're going, where you're gonna live? And I was like, what the fuck are you? Are you gonna help me if I tell you? No, then
Yeah.
leave me alone, bro. So I drove off base, literally in my car, and I just parked at the right off Polgus Gate outside of you know where Polgus
You said
is.
Carl's Jr. parking lot.
Carl's Jr. parking lot. Yeah, I
Fuck
slept
yeah.
in there. Just fucking slept there and went down to the beach and chilled at the beach and just hung out and I just met people and shit and just slept in my car for a while. Yeah, and then I went and lived with my grandma.
Yeah, it'd be nice. I mean, if you think about it, it's not really different. I mean, if you're in the public sector and you've been working and you've given loyalty to a company for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and they got to let you go, typically they give you a little bit of severance.
Correct.
And so
Yeah, and the government,
and that's
the
intended to
companies,
kind of offset that downtime that you have, and it's not going to get you on your feet, but if you're looking for employment elsewhere, and you got the severance and you're collecting unemployment, then it kind of covers that.
So you went overseas and then you got into Iraq and then you're getting fitted in. Was that the first time you got into conflict?
Yeah. So
How many tours did you do?
Just 2.
You did 2.
Yeah.
And at
Like,
this
One in
time,
Iraq, one in Afghanistan.
and this time, your deployments are long, right? They're 9 months to a year.
Yeah, they're a year. The second one got cut short because I was. This would have been June of 2012. I got wounded. So that was about 6 months.
Okay.
You got wounded in 2012?
2012.
In Iraq?
No, in Afghanistan.
Okay. What was it? You got shot or?
No, I got blown up with a mortar round.
Holy shit,
Peppered
bro.
with shrapnel.
Ooh.
You doing
Yeah.
okay?
I'm doing better now. Are there lingering effects? Yeah, I've got like a lot of loss of nerve sensitivity on the underside of my arm, and I get like a lot of elbow pain because that's a large chunk kind of lodged itself.
They can't take it out.
No, they took it out, but it caused a lot of nerve separation and.
Yeah, I know some dudes that have like shrapnel wounds, and they've left the pieces in their body.
Correct.
So it's their hands and shit.
Correct.
And then they just kind of wait till it protrudes, and eventually it pops out.
Yeah.
You could just cut it out.
Yeah, I
Say
mean
it's
there
better over time.
were fragments that they didn't worry about because they were tiny, and it's more invasive to go grab them than it is to just leave it.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You 100%?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah. I'm
It
a
took me,
hundo,
it
too,
took me a
yeah.
while to get there.
And 0.
We need to get you into the
I think I got re-rated 5 years after the initial rating, and I went into this panic because I was like, "Fuck, dude! You know, 'cause you get re-rated. I mean, you can go south and go the wrong way."
Mm-hmm.
And
They say if you're after 5 years, you're good.
you know,
10
maybe,
years.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was at the 4-year mark.
I don't know.
I remember getting a letter, and I was in panic mode. And I went and saw all these doctors. And it turned out, when the letter came back, it was 100%. I was like, oh, great, fantastic, it's wonderful. No car registration.
Yeah, there you go.
It helps
Get
out.
the Purple Heart plates, too. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Deserve that shit.
So yeah, I got wounded. It was June of 2012, and a little bit of context there. Before I deployed, I met my soon-to-be wife, and she got pregnant.
When you got home.
No, this is before I left for Afghanistan. So this would
shit.
have been like, I don't know, January, February of 2012. We met. A few weeks later, she's pregnant. Like a week or two after that, I'm on the plane to Afghanistan.
Oh.
Yeah, and so at this time,
whirlwind romance.
yeah, at this time, I'm, I don't know, 23. She's 19, and this will tie into something we'll talk about later. But this is, to me, the first authentic decision I ever make in my life, and authenticity is critical to emotional growth.
I agree, bro.
And this is
Banger
the
right
first
there.
time in my life where there was no external influence. I didn't give a shit about what other people were going to think. I made a decision. I got a girl pregnant, and I'm sure you've seen it. I saw so many dudes do this, and then just PCS to a different duty station, and it was like, "C'est la vie. You're on your own. I don't want anything to do with this kid." And that wasn't going to be me. That wasn't my value
You
system.
manned up.
Yeah. And so I made the decision, hey, we're going to have this kid, and I'm going to get to know this chick, and we're going to build a life. Mm-hmm. So I leave, I'm gone for 6 months. I get wounded. And then I think went to Bagram to get surgery. And then I went to launch school to recover, then Walter Reed. And I remember.
Was your daughter, son born?
No, not yet. So
Daughter, son?
Son.
Son. Okay.
Yeah, so not yet. Then from Walter Reed, I get back to Bragg, and she picks me up. And I remember her walking into the hospital, turning the corner. I left, and she was just this tiny little brunette. And she turned the corner. She's got this big belly, giant. And I'm like, oh, this is real. Okay,
Yeah.
We're here. We're at the finish line. And so we leave, and that's kind of where my life really starts.
So you just got hit. You just suffered a whole bunch of emotional trauma. On top of that, you went around to different places. Then you ended up, Walter Reed's a big medical center.
Yeah.
Like they take you there when you have serious injuries. And then from there you met her, and then you came back to the States, and then now you have this kid, and you had all this emotional stuff you had to deal with. That's a lot. Like I remember when I had my first child, I was like blown away. Like I was going through so much, and I just got back, I just got out, so I was still kind of in that sequence of, trying to figure it out. But I mean, just right after like that, wow,
It was tough because I had to learn. I had to learn how to be an adult, and I was still a kid trying to take care of a kid having a kid.
Right.
And I couldn't live in the barracks because you can't have a wife and a kid in the barracks. So I had to go get an apartment, and I had to move myself in. And I remember calling my mom one day, and I had moved into the apartment. The whole thing is empty. And I had gone around to a bunch of furniture stores and places to get utensils for the kitchen and things like that. And I'm doing the mental math in my head. I'm like, okay, well, if I want to deck this place out, I mean, we're talking 10, 15 grand. I remember calling my mom, and I was asking her, like, I don't get it. How do people do this? How do people afford this shit? Everybody just goes out and swipes the card, 0% financing for 75 years. And she's like, no, it's one piece at a time. You save up, and you get the essentials first. You get a washer, a dryer, a mattress, and you kind of ride that out. Next month, you put a little away, and now you get, some shit for the kitchen. And so it's kind of a game of accumulation. In terms of like processing everything, it was a lot. Having to recover from the injury, having to learn how to be an adult, having to learn how to live with somebody. I think it was, so I came home in June.
Did you ever take note of your like mental status at the time?
No. And so,
right. No one ever taught you how to think, right?
No. So I come home maybe end of June, early July, move into a place. Landon, that's my son. He's not born until November. And during that time, I'm recovering, trying to, I still got to show up to work. And then Landon's born. And I think maybe the first year of his life, and I didn't even realize it then. It took me a while to reflect back. I was so closed off, so disconnected.
Like you were present, but you weren't present.
Exactly.
That happens to a lot of dudes
Yeah,
out of the
absolutely.
military.
Lights on, nobody's home. And, Landon was born in November. I didn't feel any sort of emotional connection to him until probably around Christmas time.
I felt the same.
And
My daughter.
I don't know if that's just that was a byproduct of where I was at emotionally. I don't know if that happens to a lot of men, but maybe it's because we don't carry around the child. But he was born, and I just viewed it as like this thing. Okay, like what do I do with this? You got to change it. You got to feed it. But it wasn't until around Christmas time where I started to like, okay, I'm in love with this kid. This is my kid. But yeah, that first year was just numb. I was numb to everything. When you talk about, I don't know if you brought it up yet, but when you talk about the military giving you the keys to learn how to keep those emotions at bay so you can function in an operational environment. For me, subconsciously, you'd get into theater and a switch would flip. And it becomes very mission-focused, very mission-oriented, and you flatline those emotions. You don't feel the highs, you don't feel the lows, but the whole time, your body is still downloading what it's receiving. And after both deployments, you get back, and for me, there is no controlling it. You can't just consciously flip the switch. But the moment that it happens, there is such an overwhelming processing of that download.
When you get your emotions back.
Yeah.
So I guess getting them back is what we should talk about because this is important. So we've gotten along here, right? We talked about how you were in the military, how you transitioned from being in a combat zone and then getting wounded and then having a baby. Similar to me, like pretty similar.
Yeah.
I mean, I got out. I didn't get wounded, obviously, but I got out of the military. And then I was just thrown to the wolves. I didn't have my emotions, but then I led into having a kid just a few months after I got out. Mm-hmm. It wasn't too long. I didn't have much time to transition. All of a sudden, now you have a kid. And on top of that, I didn't even have a lady to be with. Yeah. I got the kid just handed to me, and then she left and moved to Colorado. So it was like this baby that I didn't even know about, and she didn't even tell me. I had nothing. I didn't even know up until like just before the 9th month that she was pregnant. And then she had the baby 2 weeks later. Hey, imagine that. You just get a call and you're like, hey, you're a dad, just letting you know. And you're like, what? Crazy. You're crazy. Who is
meet
this?
Me at the hospital.
Yeah, I was like, you're crazy. And I hung up the phone. I didn't even know. I was like, who is this chick? I didn't even know. I was working at the time. Anyways, and then all of a sudden you get this, and then now all of a sudden it's like, now you're a dad. And then there's no party there. You just get given this gift. And I consider my daughter a gift because she saved my life. Because if she wasn't there, I would have been a maniac. I'd be dead for sure. I couldn't settle down. You know how it is when you get out of the military? Like if you're not thinking about your thoughts, you're just running on literally just vices all day long. You're just like, oh, well, I need that vice. I want to go be with all these women. I want to go do these drugs or this drinking or do this partying. And you just want to fill yourself up with all that dopamine.
Yeah.
And you're just like absorbing it all until you literally just explode inside, and then you destroy every thought of yourself. You hate the way you are. You start hating yourself. You start downplaying yourself. And before you know it, you implode, But no one ever talks about that shit. No one ever talks about your thoughts, ever. And I think that's something that we should talk about because it's important, But when you get out, I think the biggest thing is no one ever talks about your thoughts, period. No one ever talk about, hey, have you ever thought about what you think about? Do you think about what you do you think about it or you just let it just run rampant? Because that's what I used to do. And then as soon as I started paying attention to my thoughts is when things started changing. It wasn't up until that time where I started realizing, hey, I have these thoughts. They're all negative. How do I make them positive? And then I got into like listening to Ed Milet, if you know who that guy is. And he was talking about your thoughts are the same as it was the day before. I think it's like 92 or 93% of your thoughts are the same as it was the day before as it was the day before that. And it's repetitive. So you don't have much of a change, but the goal is to just keep thinking positively and eventually your body, your mind, everything will roll into it because the body's the subconscious, right? It does whatever the mind tells it to do. what I'm trying to get at is I think that's important to understand that. I think it's important to understand that. What does emotional discipline mean to you, bro? Like now that you understand it, and how, and then the second part of that question, how's that definition evolved since your time in the military? Like, has it evolved? Like, what does that mean? Because I think just before you get into that, I think a lot of us think that emotional discipline's like some sort of pussy shit, you know? As far as like men, like most men will be like, I don't need emotions, I just want to be tough, Yeah. That's what we want as guys, just to puff our chest, and that's our strength, right? Mm-hmm. But what does that mean to you? And
so
does that evolve?
I think that we're speaking the same language, but I'm not fond of the phrase emotional discipline.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you why, because discipline to me is implicit of a level of rigidity. And when you think about how discipline is conventionally applied through our life, you wake up at 5, you go to the gym, you eat breakfast, you take a shower, you get to work, you go grocery shopping, you cook dinner, you're in bed by 9. It's good for the body because now your body is no longer existing in the reactionary, and that predictability is good for the nervous system. So discipline in that context is important. But when I think about discipline in the emotional context, it almost feels to me as if we are talking about keeping the emotions at bay and controlling them, where in my perspective, feeling them is absolutely imperative and critical to growth. And it's less about the discipline and more about understanding how to manage the awareness.
Okay.
That is something that it took me many years to learn.
The awareness of the emotions.
The awareness of the emotions.
Okay. So instead of a repetitive thought, you're thinking more on the lines of just paying attention to how you feel all the time.
Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. I have always had intrusive repetition of thoughts.
Okay, I like that.
I've always had that. I've always contended with an overwhelming sense of emotions. But it wasn't until maybe my early 30s that I started to gain the awareness of them. Prior to that, it was, okay, I know this is going on. I know that there's chatter going on, but I don't like it. So let me just find some sort of external thing to distract me.
When you say chatter, is that your self-talk?
That's my self-talk.
And is that self-talk negative or positive or all over the place?
Yeah, it's all over the place, but the
Gotcha.
majority is definitely negative.
Yeah,
it's self-deprecating.
And that's good. Let's touch on that because that's important. I think that we have to acknowledge that our bodies, our minds, our feelings are generated to go negative daily. That's that's a survival mode thing. So when people are thinking like, man, I wake up in negative thought. I wake up in negative, motivation. I don't have it. I just blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, but you got to generate that. And there's 2 ways to generate that, to get yourself from like a low form of self to a higher form of self. And that's a physical workout, right? Raising your blood pressure, getting the blood moving, right? That'll raise it, okay? And then gratitude. So giving gratitude, talking positively, like, hey, I'm thankful for today. Every morning I have rituals that I wake up to. You might have that now, I don't know. But I wake up and I pray every day for waking up. And I thank God for that. And I pray for my enemies, which is very difficult for me. And I say enemies.
That's wonderful, though.
In the eye that, like, I know there's people that may or may not like me or may want to hurt me for whatever reason. Maybe they're triggered by me because I'm trying to, maybe say stuff that could trigger a form in them that might want to make them want to change. Because I believe that, what did I say last time? I said that hate was confused admiration, And that's what I believe in that. I just believe that, like, the more that you trigger someone, the more that someone hates on you, eventually they'll turn into your biggest fan.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And when I mean biggest fan is like, I'm everybody's biggest fan. Like, if you're trying to help yourself and I see it, I'm going to motivate you. Like, I'll like your stuff. I'll comment on it. Hell yeah, brother. Because I really want the best for people that are trying to do better for themselves.
I would also wager, too, that the more you hate somebody, the more you allow them to control you. Because you're
you are releasing and relinquishing your power to somebody else's control. And are we talking about hate in the kind of colloquial context of being a hater, or are we talking about hate, like you're actually hating an enemy? Because the two to me are distinctly different.
I was saying like more like being a hater.
Yeah. Because I
feel like that's
I can
more
assure
common.
you that there are people in my life where it's not a matter of confused admiration.
Correct. I agree.
So not to say that it's not important to get to, because even if hating is exhausting, it requires energy.
It does.
You want to get to a place of apathy where there's indifference. You understand that you have boundaries and those people exist outside of your boundaries, and the way that they conduct themselves, their actions, they don't matter to you.
Mm-hmm.
So hate is also another form of
Such an evil word, man.
It
Such
is
a
an evil word.
disgusting
It's very aggressive. It's a strong word for sure, but it's a derivative of the pain.
And
Of
Yeah, and people that just hate, like if I deal with someone, I really like dealing with someone that just hates so much. I really do. I get off on it almost in a sense because I want to figure it out. I want to figure out like what is it that you hate so much about this person or me or whoever. What is it? And it's never really about you or them. It's about them themselves. It's always them. It's something that they're dealing with, and you're always it's something that you're triggering something inside of them, and they're feeling like this feeling of like, well, I don't like what you're doing. It's because they haven't done it themselves yet, and they want to do it, right? They want to do what you're doing, but they don't have either the courage or they haven't tried it yet or whatever, and it's just you're stirring something inside, or or it's just something from the past. And a lot of people deal with pain from the past, and they go back to it and they start thinking about that pain of what you're making them feel. And it's like, well, I tried one time and it didn't work out, and I remember the feeling of that pain.
Mm-hmm.
And
they project it on you.
And they project it onto you, and that's really internally how they feel. How people project on you is internally how they feel, right? People only treat you how you feel about yourself. It's reality. And I always tell these people, I'm like, just go back to the image, like the thought of like whatever you felt back then, and just think, could it have been 1% different? If you can convince yourself that, yeah, maybe it wasn't as crazy as I thought it was, right? That 1% should help you evolve into almost a forgiveness stage. Because what you got to do is you got to forgive yourself and you got to forgive that person.
Now you're changing your thoughts a little bit.
Now you're changing your thoughts. Now you change the emotion behind it, and then in return you change the future thought to be better.
Self-talk could be your best friend or your worst enemy. And sometimes, we hear people that maybe they are on a substance or something. That's when your self-talk gets crazy, and I know that from like personal experience and stuff like that. In a lot of times, like maybe military as well, martial arts, like we say things to ourselves, I could do this, this was one hill, whatever, one foot in front of the other, 1 mile, no sweat. Certain things like that will kick in when you need it to. On the flip side, talk of like, I'm not worthy, I can't do this, will also kick in. So it's very important to how you talk to yourself, those positive affirmations you said, gratitude, like that is a very powerful thing to get you out of a dark place, whether you need it or not, right? It's something that you've put into your daily routine to like, man, maybe this will kick in later on, but that's very cool. Self-talk, a positive mindset. These are all traits that like a leader needs to have, because we might not always have like a perfect day. And, motivation is great, but military, we were taught like discipline pays the bills. And you're right. Like when I think of discipline, I think of rigid, like on time, on target, doing what you're supposed to be doing, like whether you want to or not. And sometimes when it comes to an emotional state, well, like, why am I feeling these things? Is it something that's meant to teach me a lesson, or is it just like a deceiver thought that's just supposed to go through me real quick? I'm not supposed to have attachment to it. My mind tells me a bunch of nonsense every day. I have to sort through the things that are good for me and the things that are bad for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really a critical component, is being able to take pause when you are standing at the gates of that emotional onslaught. Because, for me, and this is speaking subjectively, I am very emotionally wired. I'd like to think that I have a nice balance between, the logic, the pragmatism, but any time that I have had people push those buttons, immediately emotional reactivity. And I have gone home so many times, whether it's in my car or laying in bed at night, and feeling guilty and ashamed of how I responded. Almost embarrassed, because, it's putting the cart ahead of the horse. Whereas in the moment, I should have taken pause. I should have allowed myself to process the emotions. I should have created an interface with that person that was like, hey, let's table this. Let's circle back. So I could go back and really parse out what is a trigger, what is an emotional override versus what really is the reality of the situation. Your emotions aren't necessarily reality. Not in all cases. How you feel about something, it's a subjective experience. And so that there were so many times where I would lay in bed and I'd be embarrassed about my conduct. Like, geez, man, my reaction to the situation did not comport with the gravity of it. And so I think it's important for men in particular, because you have those primal instincts of provide, protect, defend from any sort of external threat, whether that's to yourself or it's to a family unit, to take pause and really analyze what's going on. And I'd venture to say that it'd probably keep a lot of guys out of hot water. And it would make you so much more of an effective communicator, so much more of an ability to start to categorically file things in your mind in a way that's organized and succinct. And you can pause, and there's nothing wrong with pausing. There's nothing wrong with looking at a friend, a colleague, and just saying, hey, can I, give me a break, give me a few minutes here.
Let's talk about the most common thing that men like to do, right? We like to get angry.
Oh,
okay?
Absolutely.
That's why women always go, oh, stupid boys when we fight, right? It's like, why are we doing that? It's because we get angry. Women get angry too, but women are more emotionally based, right? So with us, we get into our head and we're like, oh, we don't understand what to do, so we're just going to punch each other, right? Reality, right? So let's talk about that, because anger is a huge deal with men, right? Especially coming from like a war zone, right?
We're taught that that's a useful ability.
Correct.
So to keep
Right.
it close by.
But the strongest man, like if you watch any of these freaking action movies, it's always like the quietest man that's just the badass. He doesn't talk, and all of a sudden he's like, boom, boom, boom. And then, he waits till the last minute to where he has to defend himself, and then he takes care of it, and he's like, he's basically like, I kind of warned you, and he's all like patient and like humble inside. Those are the men that I'm scared of.
Yeah, we've talked a
and
little bit
fearful
about
of
anger
the ones that
before.
don't talk.
Anger is a low state of vibration. After anger, the next one is actually sadness. If you ever get like a little kid, they get all pissed off real quick, whatever, and then what happens? They start to cry. You start to regress through the stages, and anger, like you said, it kind of requires a lot of energy. Makes you tired. Makes you frantic. Makes you like kind of.
It's the lowest form of self. It's literally on the bottom of it. Okay. And then when bliss is like at the top, and for me, like, as I learned all these things, the best thing for me to learn, and that helps me the most, is just giving the most love, like wanting the best for everybody. For whatever reason, that helps me the most. That helps me feel the best, is when I literally think about loving everybody. That to me, after all these years of doing all this self-help and all the learning I've done, is literally the only thing that makes me feel worth living. Is love, giving love, helping people, not thinking of anything. And like anger, like when someone does something bad to me, like completely horrible, and I'm like, man, I can't believe they did that to me. I just feel sad for them. I feel, man, that sucks. They might have needed the money more than me. That's why they stole it from me. They might have, they wanted to hurt me. That's all right, man. Well, I know you're upset about something. It's obviously them. I look at it as like it's a them issue. Yeah, they're upset. And believe it or not, if you just let people sit within their emotions and just ignore them for a minute and just say, hey, I understand you're upset. I'll get back to you. I'm so sorry you feel that way. I'm really sorry. We'll talk later. People come back the next day because people are human. They sit in their thoughts and then they start deriving on guilt, right? And then they go, wait a minute, I think I made a mistake. That in return helps them change. Not the physical altercation that you get, because then it's just, I hate you, you won, I lost, or vice versa, so I'm going to come back for more, because it just never stops. The anger part never stops.
So let me ask you a question, because this is it's hopeful, and I'd like to think that most people would be able to possess the emotional maturity and awareness to be able to sit with their own thoughts and circle back with somebody and apologize for, whatever infraction violated the other party. What happens, though, when you don't get that validation? What does that do to a man? Because I can tell you what it does to me, and it's wildly destabilizing, because it is such a violation of my principles and my values that when I don't get that validation in the form of, hey, I understand I poked you in the eye, that's proverbially speaking, I'm sorry, it creates such a disconnect for me. And that's been a part of my struggle for a long time, is having this expectation that because the way that I'm wired and the way that I operate, that should be the expectation of what I receive back.
They're going to reciprocate.
That they're going to reciprocate identically. And if they don't,
then it's a trigger for you.
It's a trigger because it creates this discrepancy.
I think that's an expectation that you have on somebody else.
100%.
Right, and it's your expectation thinking that they should be here. But I don't. That's my thing. That's what I changed. Is I was like, okay, I'm not going to expect anything from anybody. because they're just going to all let me down.
That's crazy.
I'm gonna
Hey,
expect
that's
shit
an
of me.
extreme, and then the Law and Order is an
Well,
extreme.
but what I do is I go, okay, I'm going to expect shit of myself. Okay, I'm going to be the better person. Hey, I'm sorry, whatever. You don't want to say sorry? You don't want to validate me back? No problem. I probably don't deserve it. Okay, then that means I need to give more. And I know that sounds crazy, but in my eyes, I go, okay, he didn't have the validation enough to, he didn't want to validate me back. He didn't want to tell me that, hey, you know, you were right, brother. I made a mistake. I shouldn't have called you that or whatever. Okay, cool. Well, then I owe because I owe for you. I'm going to pay for you because you're obviously hurting. So I'm going to go back to the drawing board and I'm going to make sure that I did everything right for the next time. Or I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to bang out some burpees, or I'm going to go get a second workout in because I need to give more back because I'm obviously not giving enough because you didn't see enough from me. You didn't look at me as enough value to be like, okay, I made a mistake with this guy and this guy's actually a good dude. Right. And I shouldn't have said what I said and I came off the wrong way and because I didn't feel it inside. So he's obviously hurting. So if he's hurting still and I can't help him figure out his own shit through him watching me, then I need to give more because obviously I'm not doing my job. And because my job a long time ago, when I decided that I didn't have a purpose in my life because I was unemotional, I was like you when I first got out. I couldn't see past my front door. Like I couldn't connect with my daughter. I had this kid, like you said, and I was looking at her and I was like, dang, I got this kid, but why don't I feel anything?
Yeah.
It's just, no, I got to take care of it. That's it, but I can't connect with it. I can't hold it. I can't love it. I just don't feel those feelings, I'm never going to go back to that because the way that I feel now, the way that I've opened up, I'll never go back to that. I'll never let anyone anger me, anyone ever change the way that I feel ever. I think that's the most powerful thing. And eventually, like if you can get to a state to where no one can ever change your emotions, Jesus, man, that's the most powerful thing you can have, I think. I think if you can get to a place in your mind that literally no one can affect you emotionally, ever. They can say anything they want. You're just like, oh, man, you're really hurting. I'm so sorry, man. I feel bad for you. I want to help you.
Well, that's invoking. Is that truly one of the hallmarks or a cornerstone of emotional mastery or regulating what's inside? Because even you saying that, is that not an emotion? Is that not empathy? Is that you not having enough awareness for their emotional state, their strife, their trials, their tribulations, to have the capacity to forgive instantaneously because you've gained that awareness?
Good question.
And it's, I'm reluctant to stay on the side of the fence that feels nothing. I do believe that getting to a place where what you're digesting is not interpreted as anger or resentment, anything that's toxic like that, because that's corrosive to our own well-being.
Own well-being, our body, our chemicals in our body that the brain releases, the trauma feelings, all that crap.
But I do believe, like you do. There's no science to this. This is just my own heart, my own mind, kind of piecing together what I believe to be commonsensical. But you have kind of three stages in maybe your growth journey. You have the first stage where you're somewhat aloof to everything, and there is no. You're just on autopilot, kind of how we were when we, post separation, and then maybe something happens, some sort of emotional experience that kind of rips the Band-Aid off a little bit and lets some of that emotion start seeping through. You start to think about that, so you start to gain minimal amounts of awareness and transition kind of into the second stage, where now you've got the awareness, but it becomes very, very isolating because you don't know what to do with it. And the thoughts, they loop around constantly. You're sitting there, isolated, prisoner to yourself, just watching all this stuff going around. And I was very, very effective. I stayed in that place for a long time, very, very effective at intellectualizing every single one of those emotions and tracing them back to their origins. If I told you I felt sad, or if I told you I felt insecure or whatever, I would pick it apart and try and tell you. Okay,
Identify it where.
Yeah. So if I told you, well, I look in the mirror today and I feel like I should be on the next season of my 600-pound life. Yeah, you'd look at me, what are you talking about, bro? And I would tell you, this is where it comes from. And I would trace it all the way back. Why is interesting but irrelevant? Who gives a shit? Maybe having that awareness is important, but there's this expression that's used in therapy all the time. Got to do the work. And that is a concept that has evaded me for years.
The work instills the worth.
Yeah. But what is the work? I just couldn't get it. I didn't understand. I've been in therapy for years, psychiatric, medications. My mom's a therapist. God bless her soul. I don't know where I'd be without her. But I did not understand what the work was until probably the last 8 or 9 months.
It's because you weren't ready probably to accept it.
Yeah, I think that's certainly part of it. Maybe that's exclusively it, but I realized, and I think that doing the work clicks with everybody differently. But for me, it was simple. It's choices. You got to go left everywhere that you used to go right. You got to start making choices to show up for yourself.
Correct.
Be your own cheerleader. Be your own biggest advocate. Show up for you. Show up for your kids. Be authentic. Learn to love yourself. Gratitude, you talked about that. When I look in the mirror and I say that, those self-deprecating things to me, yeah, it's funny. Maybe there's some comedic value to it. But I'd be willing to bet you that every person on my 600-pound life would give their left leg to look like me.
Oh, yeah.
Be grateful for that. Can always be worse. But we're so... Well, I guess I should talk about the kind of the final journey. I guess that would be kind of the third place, where now you're in a spot where you have the awareness, you stop intellectualizing everything and trying to, root them back to their origins. And now you are coexisting with the emotions and learning to manage them, learning how to integrate them into your life, use them as tools.
I was about to say that, yeah.
You might be the type of person that has stepped in every pile of shit from here to Timbuktu, and you feel like you're cursed. You feel like always a dark cloud looming around you. But maybe stop to think that you're one of the lucky few that gets to experience that strife.
Correct. You turn it to a positive.
And grow exponentially from it. Maybe think that way.
Let's talk about that for a second. So for me, like, and what I tell people, because people always come to me and they're saying like, "Hey Colt, so what do I do to change?" Like I've had a couple vets like hit me up, and I always say, "Okay, well, what are your non-negotiables?" And they're like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Research that. Yeah. Write down your non-negotiables and then post it to the world. Let everybody know so people can call you out when you default off of it." That's number one. Then going into authenticity, right? Being your true self, right? Be who you are. And that takes time. It's very difficult to be as truthful as possible. But if you speak the truth, everything just flows.
Yeah.
It just flows. If you want to cuss, cuss. If you want to talk like crap, talk like crap. If you want to wear a blue shirt and red pants, do that. If that's you, do that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like whatever you are, your people will find you. But if you're fake, your people can't find you because other people that aren't your people will find you, and then those aren't your people, and then you don't connect with those people.
Well, you wind up living life as an actor.
Correct. Yeah.
And that is a very, very exhausting existence because
you're just living a life full of lies.
Yeah, well, every day is an act. Mm-hmm. Every day you got to show up to work with a script and bullshit the people around you, and you have to go home and lay your head on your pillow at night knowing that none of it was real.
Yep.
That's not who you are.
Living a false identity.
And knowing that the people that you've surrounded themselves with have attached themselves
to a fake
idea. To a figment. It's not real. They're not even your real friends. They don't know you. You have no way of knowing.
Well, they're your friends because of who they think they know.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. It's just really, it's like knowing Tim, but it's really not Colt.
That's exactly right.
And going into that, and then people will say like, well, what do I do? And it's like, well, there's three things. In my eyes, there's three things. There's physical, there's mental, and there's faith. I think you have to do something towards those three every day.
It's critical. I can speak to that first person.
And it just sucks because sometimes I don't want to listen to a podcast. I don't want to read a book. I don't feel like it, but I do it because I'm disciplined. I have to do it because it's the work. Mm-hmm. I know what it felt like to be where I was 4 years ago when I started this journey. Yeah. When I started having panic attacks and anxiety is when I decided that there was something more to this life. And then as I got into like the reality thing and listening to Ed Milet and all these other people talking about your thoughts and your feelings and all this, and then it started making sense, and I started getting addicted to it. And then I just put my headphones on, and I listened to it all fucking day. I just put it in my head so I could just remember those tools. And when I would like wonder, like, why are these people like this towards me? Oh, it's because of this reason. And then that was factual, and then I researched that, and I was like, okay, that's the reason why they're like that. And then it would make sense once you get the proof. But as you learn, daily physical is everything. Getting into the gym, raising your vibration, being around the right people, your frequency. People at the gym are typically happy, Okay. People at jujitsu are typically happy. People in a boxing ring or in a boxing place are typically happy. People that are vibrating high and putting out energy physically are typically happy. Then you got the mindset shit. If you're constantly learning about mindset and you're learning different ways of dealing with emotions constantly, you're educating yourself, you're reading books, you're watching a podcast, a YouTube clip, whatever it is, you're going to gain. See, intelligence relieves anxiety, I believe. The smarter that you are, the more that you know, the less anxiety that you have, okay, in my eyes. And that's what I was always battling. So to me, that was gaining life.
Unpack that one for me. Help me understand that. The intelligence equates to anxiety relief.
So in my eyes, the more that I've learned about, I don't know, emotional discipline, I like to call it, and you call it something different, being more peaceful, being more authentic, being more myself, learning to set boundaries with people, how to do that, learning from authors, learning from doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, people like you that speak the truth. All these people, and taking the little tools that I get from each of these people, the smarter that I get and the more information that I obtain, the more at peace I feel, the less anxious I feel. And in return, I relieve my anxiety for the future.
I can't agree anymore.
That's just my thoughts.
No, it's spoken eloquently, and I can't agree any more than that. I think the only part that I would say is that it kind of feels like an incomplete sentence in that, imagine walking into Home Depot and you're a guy and you're just looking around. You're not really there to buy anything, but you're walking up and down the aisles. You're seeing all this cool stuff. And so you walk away with intelligence. You walk away with an understanding of what products are out there. And life, in some ways, is this aggregation of tools for your toolbox.
Yeah.
And that's really kind of a great personification of where men stand at in relation to one another. And that's why it's so important to lean into the village, because your toolbox may have a couple empty drawers. The same with mine, but they may not be the same empty drawers. And so we go to Home Depot and we look at all the tools that should be in there. Now we've gained the intelligence. But it's only half the sentence, because the other part of it is now we got to put the tools in the drawer. And so I really love what you said there about, I mean, really you're speaking to leaning into the village, talking about my interactions with me and your interactions with the other world, and you're deploying the tools, and that you've put them in your toolbox and you're using those tools.
Yeah.
So many men are reticent in engaging the village to ask them for a fucking tool to put it in there. And there's nothing wrong with that. We are tribal people.
We need to ask the questions.
Just
how do I do this?
Exactly. And that's okay.
Right here. Here's the blueprint.
That's okay. What is wrong with that? There is nothing wrong with that. Being a man, what is being a man? Okay, well, if you look at it from a primal level, a protector, a provider, a hunter, I don't care who you are in this world. I don't care if you're a garbage man. I don't care if you're a CEO. It ain't about how deep your pockets are. It ain't about how much material shit you can, bring to fruition. It's about that authenticity. It's about living your true self. It's about putting your nose to the grindstone. They ain't going to put me in a box 6 feet down with all that material shit. But when I close my eyes and I look back at my life, was I a good man? Did I provide for my family? Did I love my children? Did I show up?
Becoming the best version of yourself, brother.
That's exactly right. And that's where I'm at now, because when I look back into those years of post-separation from the military, I was talking about this, and I hope I don't fucking cry here, but my son's 12. He'll be 13 in November. And the type of dynamic, the way that things have shifted now, in many senses feels almost like a death. I'm grieving the dynamic that he's not that young, cuddly, innocent little boy anymore. He's now in this period of expressionism and trying to find who he is as an individual. And he's touching all these flames. And it doesn't matter what I say to him. It doesn't matter what approach I take. It's in one ear and out the other. Mm-hmm. And some kids are like that. That's how I was. They wouldn't have mattered what.
So you're at the age right. He's at the age right now. Like, whatever you say as a father, it's gonna be the opposite.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's you could tell him the best advice ever. He's not gonna listen to you.
It breaks my heart. We were having a discussion in the kitchen the other night, and I could just see it in his eyes. And I said to myself, it's gonna be a long time before this kid finds his way back to me.
That's how I feel about my oldest daughter.
And you I don't know, maybe hopefully some of this advice bodes well with the parents out there, but your only job in that moment is just to keep loving and to keep showing up.
Correct.
They need to know that you are their North Star, that they will always have a soft place to land. And yeah, I mean,
I love that, man. That was great. I like how you said that.
You're not
Yeah,
always
that's
going to
great.
have. My daughter's 7, and that a lot of warm cuddliness there. It doesn't last forever, and I know that even with her, there will come a day where it's like, you know, her high pitched little daddy voice is gone, and it's, no, Dad, I want to go to the mall and hang out with my friends. I don't want to spend time with you, and you know, that's tough. It's tough because I look back at how much fucking time I squandered as a young man worrying about shit that I didn't need to worry about.
Shit, that doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, rough, you know, staying up late, running spreadsheets, trying to figure out how to rob Peter to pay Paul. And part of my acceptance of who I am and strength of character at this point is looking at all that and saying, I'm still standing. It didn't break me.
Yep.
So clearly, I got the tools. I'm good. I got everything that God intended me to have. But it does, it's, I don't know if I'd call it a regret, but it's certainly a pain point for me to look back. And I do wish dearly that I could get that time back. But if I stay in that zone and just lament everything, I'm going to miss the moment that we're in now.
But you recognize it now.
I do.
Right. And that's more important than anything because some people never get that moment.
They don't.
Some people are never where we're at right now, bro. We're like, hey, we fucked up the last 10 years or whatever. You know, we weren't there. We weren't present. But now we are.
Yeah.
Now let's see the money, right?
When you're looking to grow, like, you know, the best place is in the mirror, and you reflect on your life.
So
Where can I do better?
that is the like that. I'm so glad you brought that up because people don't want to look in the mirror.
It's hard.
That is
it's
a
hard
scary.
sometimes.
That is a scary motherfucker when you look in the mirror, and it takes a lot of courage and a lot of guts to get up and look at that monster you don't want to see. But you got to understand, it's not a monster. You know, the parts of you that you don't love, that you hate, that you're ashamed of. They're the other side of the coin. They're what make you who you are.
Fuck yeah, bro.
And-
Own that shit.
Yeah, own it. You know,
I own all of it, man. It's like when people talk shit about my chicken legs. I own that shit, man.
You know, have
I love my chicken legs, bro.
Have I done bad things in life? Have I done things that I'm not proud of? Have I lived disingenuous?
All of
Yeah,
us,
all of it, all of the above.
You know what? You know what makes it all possible? And to me, man, and the last thing that I forgot to say was, you know, you got your physical, you got your mental, but you got your faith. And for me, my faith is everything because I put that on top of everything. Every time I have a fear, you know, I feel like, man, you know, like, what if this doesn't work out? What if I don't get the money for this? I lose it. You know, I just put it on him, man. I put it on God. Personally, for me, you know, I believe in God.
It's hard. It's hard for a lot of people to get to God, though.
That's true.
And it took me
I
a
get
long
it.
time.
I get it.
What I would say, because it is important, faith in a higher power. If you can't get to a place where you accept God into your heart, maybe it's spirituality then. But at a minimum, you have got to find your why. You've got to. And for me,
Your kids?
I lived for many months kind of ashamed and upset that my kids weren't enough to be my why.
Wow.
You know, and I don't know if we'll have enough time to talk about that. But what I can tell you is I have forgiven myself for that. For me, I was sick and tired of feeling sick and tired.
Me too, brother.
And
You hit that right on the fucking nail.
I only got to that point probably around the January time frame, and I was probably in the darkest place I'd ever been in my life. I had done something that I had never done before, which was I isolated. I didn't want to see anybody. I mean, you saw me in the gym for a long time.
Yeah.
I took 2 months off.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be anywhere. And I turned my back on my greatest friend, which is the gym. The unconditional love, always there for me, always make me feel good. But I retreated, and the problems compounded. And that's when I realized I'm sick and tired of being fucking sick and tired. And I don't ever want to go back to this place. I don't ever want to feel this anymore. I don't want to give control to everything else in my life except me.
You chose to do the work, bro.
Yeah, so
and that's
whether-
why you're
yeah.
online. That's why you're doing all the shit you're doing because you're showing it.
Yeah.
And it motivates me, man. I see you
appreciate
doing
that.
it, and I'm like, hell yeah, bro. That's my dude right
But that's
there,
the
dude,
community.
you know?
That's the
This is the
tribe. You know,
village. This
surround
is the
yourself
village
with
right here.
people that,
Because people that are in the same boat or higher than you in the levels will always try to pull you up. People that are below you will try to pull you down.
Yeah.
That's how you know the difference. So if you're out there trying to do something better for your life, and that's why I did a whole thing this morning about recording yourself. Someone was saying to me that, oh, you post the same shit every day. I'm like, that's the fucking point.
Yeah, I caught a piece of hate a few weeks ago.
You know,
it was crazy.
Repetition is reputation. If you see that I'm the same daily and I'm doing the same shit, you can count on me to do it tomorrow, which means that if I'm going to do it tomorrow, I'm probably going to be the same dude tomorrow. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not going to be good on it for a week and then all of a sudden veer off. And you can't, because that's what people want. People want consistency. They expect to show up and see me online doing that for not only them, but for me. You know, and then you build your team, you build your community, like you're saying, you build your people. And I think that's what life's about, is finding your people. Who are your people? Who do you relate with? Who, you know, it feels so good to me when I find people that are like-minded, like you. You know, we talk on the emotional level where we're both manly men, you know, like, yeah, if you confront us, we'll handle our business, but we don't want to. We just want to help you, or we want to understand you, and we're open to that emotional understanding.
Especially now. I mean, dude, it ain't 30 years ago. You pop off on somebody. It's like everybody's got their phone out.
Yep.
You're done.
Yep.
You know, so maybe even from a more pragmatic standpoint, if you're not at a place where you can understand the emotions, like at least understand the fucking repercussions.
Correct. Yeah.
Adam, where can we find you? Where you're at? What are your socials? What are your tags? What do you?
So, Instagram. It's Adam Flash. Find me there. I try and post things multiple times a week. I do it for myself, you know. It is about repetition and
hold yourself accountable.
Yeah, holding myself. If people want to see it, they can. If they don't want to see it, that's fine. I am looking to kind of parlay what I'm currently doing into something a little more formal.
Get some coaching.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, Adam Flash, where you can find me. I'm usually posting stuff about where I'm at in life and, you know, stuff of me at the gym. And I do it because 5 years ago, I wouldn't have been there. I wouldn't have had an ounce of the confidence required to do that. So I'm proud of myself. I'm proud. I mean, it's a reflection of my growth. It's a reflection of the control I've taken back. But I'm really hoping that I can parlay this into a voice that helps men.
This is
I
one.
like
This
that,
is
bro.
one. This is this podcast right here. You got it, man.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure to speak to you today.
Yeah,
Get to
it's
know
been
you a little
pleasure. I
bit.
appreciate you guys.
Well, I'm
having
proud
me
of
on.
you, bro.
I
Just know that,
appreciate it.
man. I really am, dude. And I love the guy that you are, dude. And we're all the same, man. Like
Yeah.
I was saying, this is a village, you know. We're finding our people. So every time I do a podcast, I'm like, that's my dude
for
right
sure.
there. That
For
dude's
sure.
on my team, or I'm on his team, you know, vice versa. And I get off on that, man. I love that shit. Guys, you guys got everything else? You guys good?
That was awesome.
We're
Man.
good?
Thank
yeah,
you. Thank
yeah.
you.
I think we're good. We could always touch back on it again. We could always run this again.
Yeah, definitely have to have you back on.
Oh, 100%.
Definitely have to have you
Yeah,
back
yeah.
on.
We'll talk more. We'll get into more. All right, guys. Until next time, get up, get after it, and get some.
Bitch, don't get too comfortable. Better not get too comfortable. Better not get too comfortable. Yeah.